So what do you say we get into this conversation?
Yeah. I say let's dive right in. This is the
All
meat
right.
of the conversation. So let's dive right in. Yeah. The ball
Absolutely.
is
And
in your
and
court.
and so I find a lot of these questions very, very interesting, and I think we probably won't get through all of them because the first one is pretty heavy. The first one's a pretty heavy question, and it's one that philosophers have been debating for a long, long time. Bertrand Russell, Sean Carroll have all spoken on this. I mean, books have been written on it. It's a pretty weighty topic. So the first question is, why is there something rather than nothing? This is also otherwise known as the fundamental question of metaphysics. So, what is your position on this, Charles?
Okay, so why is there something rather than nothing, right? I believe that there was never nothing. There was always something, right? The scientific view is that nothing comes from nothing. Nothing can come from nothing, right?
Right.
The states of matter and energy are interconvertible, right?
Yep.
You don't lose anything. It's like a closed system. You don't actually create anything or you don't lose anything. It's just a conversion to a different state of being, state of existence. And I think that that view is very consistent, and it strongly reinforces for me the idea that if there is anything that has always existed, since nothing can come from nothing, then it has to be God, right?
Mm,
And that's a religious point of view, that's a religious worldview, right? Now I think where science has an issue is if your claim is nothing can come from nothing, then how do you explain existence? How do you explain the current state of being? I mean, obviously things currently exist. How do you explain that? And I find the scientific worldview wholly incapable and insufficient to explain that paradox of nothing coming from nothing. But in the religious worldview, if something has always existed and that thing happens to be God, then it logically follows that he could have created everything, in which case it would not be contradictory to the scientific principle of nothing comes from nothing. Yeah, so
mm. So I hold the same belief, or not the same belief, but I hold the same understanding that you do that nothing has ever existed. There's always been something that has existed. And well, let me ask you this question because I think this needs to be resolved too. Is that if if the answer to the question for you is God, right? It poses a couple of different other problems. Which one is you're just adding another question on, right? So if God did it, where did God come from? How did he actually physically create the universe? Because inside that question is the same question that science is trying to answer. Even if God did do it, how did he do it? Right? We have large hadron colliders that have been testing these hypotheses for decades. This is a question that's been being attempted to be answered for a long, long time. So the difference between science and religion really is that one has one less question than the other. And so the question would be, if God does exist and if God did create the universe, how did he do it? And wherein lies the problem of the infinite regress? If he did it, where did he come from? And where did he come from? And where did his father come from? And his father come from? Because if the answer to that is, well, he's always existed, that poses a whole nother line of questioning, right? Because nothing can come, something can't come from nothing. So where did he come from? So how do you answer these questions?
okay. So first of all, I want to understand that you agree with me that nothing can come from nothing. It means anything in existence has to come from something prior.
Yes.
Okay. So the question about where did God come from doesn't arise if he always existed. The question of infinite regression doesn't come up if the default state is something has always existed. and that thing that has always existed is God. So you can't ask where did he come from when he's always existed. You only ask that in a situation where he has a definite origin, he has a definite beginning. Like the universe has a definite point in time that he came into existence. The Big Bang proves that. That is not the case with God. He's always existed. So the question doesn't arise, where did he come from? Because the default state is existence. That's
Mhm.
what is. From him came other things, came matter, came energy, came the laws of physics and every other thing. But this scientific perspective, if we're to say, yes, we both agree that nothing can come from nothing, but something exists. Science cannot tell us why that is. That's a
Mhm.
fundamental principle that's broken by our mere existence, something coming from nothing. The religious worldview doesn't have that constraint because the assumption is that something has always existed. But the
Mhm.
scientific worldview is, well, nothing can come from nothing. Well, we are here, we're not nothing. So where did we come from if nothing can
Yeah.
come from?
So I guess let me pose the question differently here. So if God has always existed and we acknowledge that something can't come from nothing and God is something, it would beg the question, where did he come from?
Well, no, because he didn't come from anything, he's always existed. That's the
But
point.
nothing that we
No,
know of does that.
not well, nothing that we know of, but based on the understanding that you and I have that something always existed, the question
Mhm.
of nothing comes from nothing only arises when nothing is the default state. But if something is the
Oh, I see
default
what you're
state,
saying.
then you understand. You can't say, okay, so
Yeah.
where did it come from?
Yeah. Okay. So if that's the case, we still have to deal with the question of how did he do it? Right?
How
That's a
did he do
fundamental
what?
question right there. How did he create everything that was here, if that makes sense?
Okay.
So if the universe started at the Big Bang, right? And let's say that let's just let me see if I can steel man you a little bit here. So let's say that God took material that was infinitely small, right? Much like what scientists say, the Big Bang
Mhm.
started from was a infinitely dense, little ball of everything. How did he take that and how did he split that apart to create what we have here? Because that's the real big question here is like, do we need God to explain that? Because
So,
that's one more explanation that we have to tag on to the question.
So God is the essence of existence. Everything that is flows from Him. Everything that exists comes from Him.
Mhm.
So we are an extension of His existence. The material
Uh-huh.
world, the metaphysical world, and what have you, they are where we project from Him. We're an extension of His existence. So how did He create it? How did He do all that? I may not be able to tell you specifically, but ignorance of a thing doesn't mean it doesn't exist. We
Mhm.
just have to try to make a link. If this being that has always, if there's a being that's always existed, has no beginning, no end, then why is it inconceivable that he could have created what we now see in the material world? It's not inconceivable considering his nature, his state of always being. So he encapsulates existence. He encapsulates being,
Mhm.
time, space, what everything you want to think of, they all flow from him. They all emanate from him. They are like pieces of himself that he has extended out into space. Space itself, it's an extension of him. Yeah.
Yeah. I see what you're saying there. And you mentioned ignorance of a thing doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, but the same kind of logic can also exist where ignorance of a thing doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. And that's kind of the fundamental problem that I always come up against, and one that I had to answer for myself as an atheist is if I don't have evidence of something, then I tend to not believe it. So the answer still doesn't follow from the premise as far as I'm concerned. And I don't know how our viewers feel, but please feel free to make a comment down in the section and let us know how you feel about this topic. But despite a lot of the other arguments that you've made, there's a couple other questions inside there too, which is, why is there nothing rather than something? And the reason why I pose that question is because, as far as we know, we're the only life in this entire universe, because we don't have evidence for it. Mathematically, it's impossible that there's not more life out there. We just simply haven't found it yet. But it's weird to me that God would create a nearly, as far as we can tell, infinite universe, mostly full of nothing. And not nothing in the sense of absolute nothingness. I'm saying there's a nothingness between the stars, right? Space is I think people tend to not be able to comprehend how vast space is, but there's a lot of nothing between us and even the nearest solar system. And if there's no life on any of these planets, and we're the only planet with life, it necessarily begs the question, why did he put into place all of this universe simply for our observation of it? He could have done half as much and we still would have been intrigued. He could have put no stars in the night sky and we would have never questioned it. So
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on this position?
Okay, so first of all, I think we're limited by our human understanding of things, just as much as a 2-year-old child may not understand the intricacies of what adults are doing, right? It doesn't mean what they're doing doesn't make sense. That doesn't mean that it doesn't have a purpose. It's just that at that point in time, we cannot understand or fathom it. Number two, we're not so certain that we're the only life in the universe. You can't rule that out. You can't be conclusive that we're the only life in the universe. And you can't also conclude that whatever things you have out there don't serve a purpose. You may not understand the purpose right now, but maybe it's all linked. Maybe that's how a whole bunch of dot and nothingness is needed for the system to function properly. I mean, a lot of the human DNA is simply junk, right? But if you take out that junk, there's a big problem. So maybe those junk are there for for a purpose, for a reason. But supposing those junk don't even serve any purpose. Let me quote Norm Macdonald, my favorite comedian. He said, sometimes there doesn't have to be a point to everything. Sometimes there is no point to some things, right? It doesn't mean that thing doesn't exist. It can exist without it having a point. But I think that the way the universe is structured does have a point, and I think we may not understand what the point is at this point in time. Maybe it's with time, with more scientific developments and achievements and all that, we'll come to understand what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. But the question, Bertrand Russell once said that nothing has to have an answer. The universe just is there, and that's all. Sometimes, an answer doesn't need to be had. And so in that vein of, and as you just said, we don't always need to have a reason. Again, it forces us to ask the question, why do we need God as the reason for the existence? There's no reason for it.
The reason for it might be irrelevant. What is relevant is it exists. The reason for it, we might differ, we might disagree on what are the reasons. I have my answer to the reason for our existence. It is stated in the Bible, right? It's for us to, God Almighty wanted to have fellowship with beings that He's created, and for us to worship Him, right?
Yeah.
So that's the reason. Not everybody would accept that as a reason, but it is totally irrelevant. What if that's not the reason He decided to create? Maybe it's another reason that we're not aware of. But the fact that we're not aware of that reason doesn't invalidate our existence or that He created us. It just is. He created.
Isn't that well, let me ask you this question. Isn't this kind of dangerously close to what Sam Harris accused Jordan Peterson of Jesus smuggling? We don't know the answer,
Oh,
therefore Jesus.
no, no, no. I
You
don't
don't
think
think
it's
so?
even remote. No, it's not remotely close at all. To say because we don't know the answer, Jesus. I mean, how does that fit in? Can you be more elaborate on how that fits in?
Well, I mean, we're talking about why is there, something rather than nothing, and the big question really here is that we both don't know how it happened. One argument put forward by yourself is God. God did that. Mine is that the same result could have happened without him. And so anytime we have something that we simply can't explain purely because religion offers us an answer doesn't necessarily mean that that's the truest answer. So the concern that I have is that when we look at things that we don't understand and we automatically place that on the altar of God's responsibility to explain, when sometimes that explanation isn't needed, it just is.
Okay, so I would say that the explanation is needed because let's say, for example, we're engaging in an intellectual exercise.
Hmm.
We both are not certain of our position. We're just postulating. You've got to
Right.
ask yourself, in this theorizing, which is more plausible, which is more logical? And as we have seen, my position, my worldview of something always existing, and that thing being God, makes more sense for the fact that we exist. If something has always existed, then it is very easy for that something to lead to other things. If nothing has ever existed, which is not your position because you believe that something has always existed, right? If nothing from the scientific point of view, because they believe the universe just gave birth to itself out of nothing, I mean, that's silly. Like, that's literally silly. That goes into myth making. Universe can't
No.
give birth to itself. Something can't give birth to itself. So you then ask which of these two worldviews makes more sense, which is much more logical, which is much more coherent. And at that this point in time, I think mine is much more coherent. So whether or not it is true, as opposed to the contrary opinion, this is more coherent, this makes more sense.
Hmm. And so I kind of stand opposed to that because I think there doesn't need to be an explanation or a why necessarily, but I'm curious to understand how. And that's really my big question, and in the position that I hold is how did it happen? And that's something that we might not ever be able to understand, but there's certain things that we can look at, and we don't need the existence of God to give us a reason or a why. Take gravity for existence. We don't know how gravity works. We understand. Let me rephrase that. We don't understand the mechanics of how gravity works, but or why it works. But we know how it works. We can calculate it. We can calculate trajectories, and precisely enough that we can land a lunar module on the moon or a module on Mars, which is trillions of miles away, with almost pinpoint accuracy. I mean, I think we've got between 5 to 10 meters of our intended destination. That's insane, and that's because we understand the math. But the issues that come up when we talk about how well this universe is put together kind of ignores how unwell it is actually put together. And what I mean by that is that we have things that don't make any damn sense. Black holes, for one, time dilations. We have this interesting phenomenon where time passes differently dependent upon the mass of an object it passes by. And so the world doesn't necessarily, or the universe doesn't necessarily make a lot of consistent sense in that sense. So it's not like the classic watchmakers argument where this finely tuned universe can't come out of anything. It has to have a watchmaker. Well, it's not exactly as fine tuned as we believe it is. There's a lot of inconsistency in the universe.
Okay.
So in that sense, there still remains that question. Why put things in that don't make any sense? You know what I mean? If God is the creator, it makes more sense to me that there are things that we don't understand that are emergent properties of a universe that is inherently chaotic.
Okay. So, yeah, Christina is asking, what if there was never nothing? I think we've covered that. My position is there's always been something. There was never nothing, right? But maybe
As
we'll
is
get
mine.
back to that. Yeah. So to answer your question, Steve, I think I've answered it before, but maybe I'll just reiterate. The thing is, your question is some things don't make any sense, and one answer to it is that, well, not everything has a point. That's the cynical answer. Not everything has a point. Now, the much more coherent answer is our level of understanding, like I said earlier. Based on our human capacity to understand things at this point in time, some things don't make sense.
Hmm?
Now, that is totally, whether it makes sense, whether we understand it is totally divorced from its understandability, the truth of it, right? So whether or not I understand algebra doesn't make algebra false. Algebra just exists. My understanding of it or my non-understanding of it doesn't limit the existence of algebra.
Mhm.
So what it means is that those things that may not make sense, right, may not make sense because of we not being able to fully grasp those concepts or what they are or what purpose they serve. And we not being able to do that doesn't invalidate the purpose they serve. We don't know what purpose they serve, but that may be a function of our limited capacity to understand things rather than it's not making sense.
Right. So what answers what answers does God give us about these phenomena?
What answers does God give us about this phenomena, right? I won't be able to tell you categorically what answers God gives about this phenomena or why such an explanation is necessary to why it is necessary to prove or disprove the existence of God. Right? I mean, if someone makes a shitty car, the fact that Elon Musk has made a shitty car, the Cybertruck is a shitty vehicle from all the reviews I've been,
Yeah.
doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that the car wasn't made by someone just because there are so many flaws. I mean, the boot can literally take off your finger, right? The pedals can get stuck and it will be on maximum acceleration, and so many other things. For the fact that he made a shitty car is not an argument against his existence. It's just that he made a shitty car. In fact, if anything, it's a confirmation that someone did something.
Sure, I understand that, but those are infinite worlds apart from the main primary question, which is, how does God explain to us these phenomena? Because that's really the crux of the question is what answers can God give us that are different than those that we seek for in science? And I think the answer still comes to zero, because neither of us can really truly explain what happened at the creation of the universe exactly. I mean, science has, the cosmic background radiation, which is the radiation that is the leftover cooling of the expansion of the universe. And we know that it exists. We have a map of it. And we know that we can't see beyond 13.4 billion years, because that limitation is set by the speed of light. We can't see past how far the universe has has existed, because the light hasn't traveled to us yet. But the problem that consistently remains in my head is if there's nothing that God has to answer, or if there's nothing that God can answer for, that which science can't answer yet either, then there's no reason for me to suspect that God exists either.
Well, if science can't answer it, science can't answer it. It has nothing at all. At least God has something. You may disagree with it, you may say it doesn't make sense, but it does have something. Take, for example, we can see, let's look at Earth. Why is there life on Earth as opposed to Mercury, as opposed to Venus and all that? The reason is because the conditions that are suitable for life are found here on Earth.
The Goldilocks zone, yeah.
So that's a purpose. That's something. That's perhaps the reason why there is life on Earth is dependent or somewhat linked with there not being life on Mercury.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps it's all connected. I made an example of the dot elements that we have in DNA, right? They literally don't, majority of the DNA literally do not do anything. But if you take them out, if you take those parts of DNA that are quote unquote dot, then you're going to create a lot of damage. But from just looking at it from the outside, the first thing you say, oh, but this serves no function. Why is it here? But it's doing something for the other functional parts. For the fact that we don't understand why it's there doesn't mean it's not relevant, doesn't mean it isn't doing something. So maybe tomorrow we have enough technology to terraform Mercury, and we go to
Yeah.
Mercury and we make it habitable. What consequences might that have for the ecosystem of the
Right.
world? What consequences might that have for maybe the tidal waves in on Earth, maybe the moon's gravitational pull on the oceans? There's no way to know, right? But it very well might be that those things are connected.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.